Welcome to the Statesman Talk. I'm your host, Anna Chaudhary, and I have here with me Mr. Mohit Sinha, who is a young politician, a former housemaster at the Doon School, formerly associated to the Jan Suraj Party, founded by Mr. Prashant Kishore. Welcome to the Statesman Talk.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for having me over.
So, Mohit, I'd like to ask you a little bit about your. You've studied in some of India's most premier institutes, like St. Stephen's. You've been a housemaster at the Doon School. Could you please tell us a little about that?
Uh, at core, I'm an educator. I find that it is perhaps one of the most powerful mediums in which one can engender change. I've enjoyed the teaching and learning process. I did it for about 17 years, both as in boarding schools in Dehradun, also in certain in. I also worked at IIM Bangalore, as well as the IAS Academy in Missouri. Enjoyed it tremendously, but I now feel that the scope of change and the lever of change needs to be a little more, little larger for the time I have left. And I think that in well-intentioned politics, if there is something like that, is by far the most influential way one can engender change. So my attempt now to do that. But yes, when people ask me whether I'm a politician or an educator, instinctively I say an educator. It's taking me some time to say politician.
All right. So that's an interesting take, actually. What do you think actually inspired you to delve from an academic background, and especially that you've studied from Harvard as well? What made you switch career paths from being a headmaster and to now suddenly politics? That's not a jump that you usually
No.
tend to see.
So there are elements, as with everyone else, there are personal elements and then there are professional elements. I come from a family that has always been in public service over 400 years. My father was also someone who was starting out his political career in the 80s in Bihar. And your viewers and listeners will know that perhaps one of the worst and most difficult, dangerous times to do politics was the 80s in Bihar. I saw him being assassinated at the age of 6. I think this has had a very strong influence on my choices and orientation. So there was always that personal element of coming back to my roots. Secondly, as I mentioned, whether it's idealism or maybe too quixotic, but एक हमेशा सोच रही थी कि जितनी जिंदगी है आपके पास उसमें कुछ अच्छा करके जाएं और शिक्षा में कुछ काम किया उसमें कुछ उपलब्धि मिली and I figured that having done that for 17 years and got large amounts of satisfaction from it, I feel the time is ripe for me at least. I'm now 42 years old. I started this political journey at 40. I started working at the age of 21. So from 21 to 40, I worked in educational institutions mostly. I think that there is need for people of my professional experiences at the grassroots level. So a lot of people with my professional experiences are technocratic in policy, or they are at central organizational levels in politics,
Yes.
not necessarily down at the ground. There might be, and
But very true. It's not a common combination that you actually tend to see.
right. And I think it would be useful for someone like me with the ability to straddle. आज आपके साथ sitting in this beautiful office in Barakhamba Road in the Statesman building. Tomorrow I'll go back to my village and stand under a tree, have a well-intentioned conversation with you, learn something from you, and sit under a tree and learn something from 40 other people with very different sort of life experiences. So I think that's quite exciting for me.
Mohit, I'd also like to ask you, there's been a very personal price that you've had to pay. Um, yet you continue to want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Well, is there no sort of resentment or bitterness, and you still want to continue to strive further?
Yeah, as I said, I think it's a healthy dose of idealism and stupidity. It's a combination of both. Um, I don't think there's any formula. Definitely, to achieve something, there has to be some sacrifice. The difference is that, at least where I am today, it is a sacrifice of choice. No one has put a gun to my head to do this. I lived a particular kind of life, uh, enjoyed that kind of life for a while. I'm doing something else now, which is more challenging, which is challenging in its own way. But it is a choice that I have made, and I have firmly believed, and this is what I've tried to teach the young people in my care as well, that choices and consequences go hand in hand. So if you have the independence to take a choice, then you have to have the courage to accept the consequence. And what the universe decides, the universe will decide. My job is to work with integrity and honesty every day, and leave the consequences up to the universe and the people of my constituency.
I'd also like to ask you, what makes you continue to work for the people of Bihar, and why specifically Bihar?
Um, I'm from Bihar. I mentioned my family is from Bihar. For centuries. Technically, if you take a step back, and I say it with a high degree of despondency, but is also hope, that in all sort of parameters of development, Bihar is at the bottom. Um,
True.
be it literacy, be it per capita income, be it kuposhan, malnutrition, and you flip it, we are at the highest in terms of unemployment, we are at the highest in terms of crime, and here is a state that has tremendous potential. So one of the ironies of being bunch of ironies of being from Bihar, today almost 50% plus of all SPs and district magistrates in the country are from Bihar. So the UPSC is perhaps the toughest examination in the world, and almost 50% plus of people who are clearing this exam are from Bihar.
From Bihar.
The largest number of migrant labor is also from Bihar.
Mhm.
So you've got this high skill set group that is migrating out from Bihar, and you've got this low skilled group that is also migrating out of Bihar. I found that to be something truly heartbreaking. Um, if you look at it again objectively, Bihar has tremendous. It's a we have Hamari khet. We are predominantly an agricultural state. We have fertile lands. We have very good irrigation. We have hardworking people who are working hard outside of the state.
True.
So if you sort of add this up, that at the end of the day, um, our population is increasing, our agricultural land is reducing. We are supposedly a production economy, but there are many more people now in service than in production.
What do you think is causing this?
It's to my mind, and I might end up sounding like some sort of socialist, but it is the end of, I mean, the optimization that capitalism requires is a maximization of profit.
Okay.
So, for example, look at the Adani Group, right? 2 years ago, they were, I think, the third or the fourth largest profitable company in the world,
Mhm.
and they had in employment less than 50,000 people. How does that compute? How is it that you're able to make such insane, I mean, such large amounts of profit, and you're hiring your employment is between 40 and 50,000? Because capitalism requires you, and there's no I'm not passing any value judgment here. It's just my sort of academic understanding. Capitalism will require you to optimize. In India, one of the cheapest resources that we have is labor.
True.
So, raw material in terms of production, most of our raw materials are non-renewable. They will reduce over time. Our markets will increase, but for the markets to increase, there has to be purchasing power. So the only, from my mind, and I'm not an economist, I'm a historian, but my understanding is, for hyper competitive private sector corporate organizations. In order to maximize profits, the one way to do that is to reduce dependency on labor. India is a labor surplus economy.
Yes.
Bihar is that much more vulnerable. So you get cheap labor from Bihar
The rest of the country.
as compared to the rest of the country. So I
Why do
think
you
that
think?
will.
Why do you think this happens actually? Because you have a lot of labor that's moving from Bihar. They might have substantial land holdings, but they still have to move out of the state to actually procure employment
Right.
to, like, say, UP or
Yeah, so
Haryana.
Anna, let me interrupt you. Bihar, ironically, does not have substantial land holdings.
Okay.
It is predominantly an agricultural state, but almost 65% plus जो बिहार के लोग हैं, उनके पास 4 बीघे से कम जमीन है. So most people, large landholders, which is forgetting the numbers now, but let us assume that it is more than 2 acres of land, uh, which we can see as large landholders. That will be less than 10% in Bihar. So mostly in Bihar, what you are doing is, हम लोग जैसे हिंदी में बोलते हैं खाने की खेती, वो कमाई की खेती नहीं होती है. Punjab, for example, or Haryana, land ownership is larger, so the farmers have larger pieces of land that allow them to to have profitable agriculture. And you will see, for example, that when the farmers' protests happened 2 years ago,
which is still happening,
which has been the largest participants of the farmers' protests were Punjab and Haryana. True. Because these were profitable farmers. They made their farming gave them profits.
No, sure.
And Bihar is more agricultural than Haryana and Punjab. But you saw very few Bihari farmers coming to protest because they are not making income. It's just you're able to grow as much as you can eat. The other problem is that one of the largest land distribution programs happened in Bihar from the 40s all the way to the 60s. So right after independence, you had the Vinoba Bhave movement, the Bhudan movement. You also had the abolition of zamindari. You had the land ceiling. Large amounts of land came into the control of the state, but I don't think they were redistributed the way they were supposed to. So our population is increasing exponentially. Land holdings are remaining the same. If you are not engaging in, which is the case in Bihar, if you're not engaging in profitable agriculture, then you cannot buy more land with the incomes that you make from farming. So then with every generation, the number of heirs to that land is going to increase, and the land size is going to get, which is what is happening is, so जहाँ आपके दादा 3 बीघा में खेती करते थे, उनके पास 2 बेटे हुए तो वो 1.5 बीघा हुआ, उनके अब 2 और बेटे हुए तो आधा आधा बीघा हुआ.
So do you think that there's what role does Bihar have to play in the ongoing farmer protest, which is currently taking place?
Unfortunately, not very much, because as I said, large amount of people, I mean, almost 60% plus of the people engaged in agriculture in Bihar essentially are landless. They are doing, the land belongs to someone else. वो बटाई पे खेती करते हैं. जिनके पास छोटे छोटे ज़मीन है, anyway, for them, it's not that they are selling directly to established markets. Packs का system होता है बिहार में, where the government is supposed to purchase agricultural product at a minimum support price. In Bihar, both for gehu, for paddy as well as for wheat, I think we sell less than 40% on MSP, whereas Punjab sells almost 87 to 90% on MSP. So the average Bihari farmer, unfortunately, for them it doesn't matter what the farm laws are. They are going to struggle either way. Yes.
Okay. But what are your views on agriculture? Because India is an agrarian nation.
Supposedly, yes.
Supposedly, and this is our strength, but currently it is also our weakness. Depends on what we do with it. What do you think is going to happen in the Bihar story when it comes to agriculture?
I think we can look at it both at a macro level, at the national level, and then bring it down to Bihar. Interestingly, uh, we are a rural country that is slowly becoming more urban than rural.
Mhm.
I remember in 94, 95, when I was in school, we were taught in our economics textbooks that India was 70% rural and 30% urban. I think by in the next couple of years, we will move 50% plus to urban and less than 50 to rural. Your vote bank is predominantly rural, and if one can conflate rural, maximum number of people who are in rural areas are also engaged in agriculture. These are people who essentially inform the political future of the country. However, in terms of profitable agriculture and agro technology,
Mhm.
there are some states that are doing better than others. Maharashtra for one, Tamil Nadu for another, Haryana and Punjab. And on the other side, you have states like Bihar, West Bengal, parts of eastern Uttar Pradesh more than western Uttar Pradesh, where predominantly agricultural, but there is no agrotech
Yeah.
involved there. So I think, and with we cannot, with the kind of population growth that we are seeing, we have to be self-sustained at least in our basic food grains. One,
Absolutely.
two, I think that we have to also focus on more nutritious food grain. So things like jowar, where so the millets, we are also dealing with a high degree of malnutrition in this country. So rice versus millet is that much more, has that much more nutrition.
So is the government not pushing towards that already with the initiatives on the multigrains actually, like
I
jowar, bajra?
I think so. I mean the government is. It's a very broad question. Uh, I feel that we have to do much more in terms of farmer education.
Okay.
Um, I feel a little embarrassed saying it. Technically I do farming as well, but it's my manager and the workers in my farm who do it. हम तो घूम करके आ जाते हैं.
Hmm.
And they are following the same practices today that they followed 30 years ago. There's been a little bit of mechanization, so there's more harvesters that are available today than they were 30 years ago. But I think there has to be, considering that such a large population of this country is involved in agriculture, there is not enough formal education that will then allow for innovative uh, farming techniques. I think, for example, Israel.
The avocado.
Yeah, I mean, it's just if you look at agro-tech, uh, you know, this might be a little. I mean, Israel is it's always a hot topic of conversation. But as an agriculturist,
Hmm.
I see here that here was an area that was predominantly desert, and they used tremendous amounts of technology to convert desert land, arid land, into arable land. And we see the we see the we see the result of that. States like Bihar, as I said, there are almost 24 plus rivers, large and small. Uh, we are, again, as compared to Punjab, which is highly electrified and are using, every small and large land holding has bore wells that are going down to almost 80, 100, 150 feet.
Hmm.
Bihar, one can hit water in almost 30, 35, 40 feet. So you have good irrigation. Generally, soil is naturally better. But I think because of certain policies as well, हम जब घूम रहे थे, in North Bihar, there was one particular village, one particular panchayat near Hathua, where in that same panchayat, in that same year, there was an X amount of land that was lost katav se, because there was a flood and the
Yeah.
river changed its course. The land sort of
Changes
just
its.
disappeared.
Yeah.
It went underwater. And in the same panchayat on the other side, there were crops that were destroyed because there was not enough irrigation.
Mhm.
And I think that is criminal. If there is a better system of
Management.
irrigation, even today, some of the best, some of the most, the working irrigation canals that we have are over 100 years old, built before independence. So yes, it's a combination. I think one, there has to be more farmer education. I think it is there in an informal way. Internet technology and mobile technology now allows farmers to look at YouTube videos,
Yes.
where they see elements of success and then try and follow it. But it's there's risk involved. So अगर मेरे पास 4 बीघा का जमीन है और मेरे बाप दादा इसी तरह से खेती कर रहे हैं, तो हम उस 4 बीघा में हम रिस्क नहीं लेंगे.
Because
जो
it's also the consequences are huge.
Yes, absolutely.
Because 4 biga, the land might be any size, but
Yeah.
the fact is that by the end of it, you've invested your khoon pasina
Correct.
and the amount of time.
Yes.
And if
Yes.
the crop doesn't do well,
Yes.
then you figure out, like the avocados, for
Yes.
example,
Yes.
the Israeli Haas avocados.
Yeah.
But I believe that's a success story in India. Some of the
Yes.
farmers have adopted that.
Yes.
So, what do you think is the support system that the government can actually, or the missing link that the government can actually help in bridging this gap of
Combination of
education?
things. Combination of things. As I said, one, the agriculture department, both at the state level and at the central level, there has to be much more farmer outreach.
Okay.
For exposure to these 2 or 3, 10, 15, 30 different farming techniques, different crops. Second, infrastructure has to be better. So there has to be better electrification. Irrigation channels have to be improved. And these are things that small and marginal farmers cannot do themselves. Third, crop insurance has to increase. Um, this summer, for example, in my village, because of the heat and high tension wires that have not been fixed properly, वो तार कट गया, खेत में आ गया, पूरा फसल आपका जल गया. तो आपने 4 महीना का 4 months of work, and just before you're about to reap your harvest, destroyed overnight. There is also this constant, and I don't know what the right answer for it is, but there is the tension between wildlife and agriculturists. For sure, at a very basic level, human habitation has encroached into areas that are naturally for wildlife. Wildlife will encroach into farmlands. There is a tension there. I'm not very sure what the right answer for that is, but there has to be some sort of better cooperation between the forest department as well and the farmers and the local administration. So the forest department thinks that they are doing their work, and rightly so, they should. They have to protect the wildlife and jungles under their care. But you've got farmlands that are attached to that. The local administration is answerable to the farmers as well. So generally you'll see some tension there. So to sum up, I would say agricultural education, better infrastructure in terms of irrigation, crop insurance for sure is a necessity. And I think our MSP systems have to increase. America is a very good example of this. To maintain prices of wheat across the world, the American government is actually giving money to farmers to not grow wheat, right? And we were talking about Dehradun before we started the show. At one point of time, the best basmati in the country was grown in Dehradun. Today, those fields are gone because you're getting better value for those fields for real estate than for agriculture. So the government has to ensure that agriculture becomes as profitable, or if not more profitable, than just selling your zameen to raise multi-stories and buildings. So broadly this, I mean, we can do an entire show on agriculture. We can keep talking about it. But my sense is these 4-5 things.
So also, Mohit, Bihar faces significant infrastructure deficit.
Yes.
And while also needing industrial development.
Yes.
How do you think that the gap will be bridged? Because one happens at the cost of the other. So looking at Bihar specifically.
Infrastructure development and
the infrastructure deficit and the industrial development.
So they will go hand in hand, right?
No, how do you say that they go? Doesn't one happen at the cost of the other?
I'm not so sure. I think a better road network allows for better movement of goods. Better transport hubs allows for better redistribution, links supply and demand. I do think traditionally the learning has been that better infrastructure will lead to better industrial growth. Again, Bihar abounds with irony. आप बिहार जाएंगे, हर हर परिवार में you talk to a child and ask them what they want to do. I would say that out of 10 kids, 8 would say हम इंजीनियर बनेंगे. सबसे ज़्यादा इंजीनियरिंग की पढ़ाई बिहार में होती है. सबसे ज़्यादा पुल भी बिहार में गिरते हैं. जब जो इंजीनियर नहीं बनना चाहता है वो डॉक्टर बनना चाहता है. तो सब इंजीनियरिंग के बाद मेडिकल की पढ़ाई बिहार में सबसे ज़्यादा होती है, लेकिन सबसे ज़्यादा झोले छाप डॉक्टर आपको बिहार में मिलते हैं.
What do you think is the reason for this?
Combination of things. I think the general education system in Bihar has been weakened consciously
Consciously, okay.
for the last 40 years.
Hmm.
So, and I'm not saying this specifically for Bihar, but Bihar is a case in point. I am not saying that only people who have got degrees are competent, not at all. I think people with lived experiences have a competency that books might not give you. There was this idea in Bihar from the 1980s onwards. It was a sort of a swing of the pendulum that for a while it was the sort of elites in Bihar that were politically, economically, and socially powerful. And the elites in Bihar, in terms of their demography, were a very small population. Lalu Yadav is one of those examples of sort of manifesting this thing that जो अल्पसंख्यक population है जो और जिसका सबसे ज़्यादा जनाधार है. They have the largest voice in politics, and rightly so. So it's a kind of swung to the other end. I think it was required, absolutely. Bihar had large amounts of both social and economic exploitation. That's why you also saw that Naxalism was also very predominant in Bihar in the 70s, 80s, and all the way till early 2000s. But within that, there was this idea, I think, that um, social social empowerment is more important than economic empowerment. I don't think that they are exclusive. And you talked about education. I'll give you another small example. So we have a constitutional amendment that reserves panchayati raj positions for women, right? So in much like everywhere else in the country, you have certain seats that only women can contest in the panchayati raj institution. But Bihar में, and I'm sure और भी जगह है, but हमको बिहार की जानकारी है तो हम बिहार के बारे में बात करेंगे. Bihar has this very interesting creation called the MP at a panchayat level. And what is an MP? He is a mukhiya pati. So the lady stands for the election, but the power is wielded by either her husband or her father or her son. I think that is an outcome of. So it is not just enough for you to have constitutional amendments to reserve seats. I think that has to happen for sure. But then you have to also build capacity for people who will then occupy those seats. And that capacity will be built with good education as well as with economic empowerment. तो बिहार में महिला सशक्ति के बारे में बहुत बात होती है, होनी भी चाहिए. लेकिन आप महिला सशक्तिकरण तभी कर पाएंगे जब महिलाओं के हाथ में आर्थिक स्रोत होंगे. एंड वो बिहार में हम लोग को दिख रहा है कि you've got the reservation, you've got these women who are now in significant positions of influence, but they don't wield that influence. So, and it is a combination of not value, not मूलभूत मतलब जो परिवर्तन होना चाहिए, it has to come with rigorous education.
And from an elementary level perspective.
From an elementary level, yes. And we don't have that. I keep talking about this in my constituency as well. Sometimes I feel that it is essentially एक चक्रव्यूह बनाया गया है. आप बिहार में जितने लोगों को अशिक्षित रखेंगे, they will be more dependent on government, they'll be more dependent on the politician. So I give this example to young people in my constituency that these multi-story things in Gurgaon, right? You've got these huge complexes in Gurgaon, and जब बिजली कटती है so the power backup comes on. पानी खत्म हो जाता है, आप टैंकर खरीद लेते हैं. Your children are studying in the best private schools. खुदा ना खास्ता आपकी तबीयत खराब हो गई तो you go to the best private hospitals. तो अगर वहाँ पे नेता पहुँच भी जाएगा तो जो the chap who the person who's working in Google, for example, and earning 4.5 lakh rupees a month, they don't really want very much from the neta because they have the capacity
to create it
to,
for
yeah,
themselves.
right.
They've got the
हाँ,
infrastructure
yeah,
already.
yeah, they have the resources, but in Bihar, the छोटा से छोटा नेता, सफेद कुर्ता पजामा पे पहन करके आप निकल जाइए कस्बे में, 10 लोग आपके पास पहुंच जाएंगे कि मेरा राशन कार्ड बनवा लीजिए, मेरा ये इलाज करवा लीजिए, ये because and it works for the politician as well. The minute, and that is why I feel my learning as an educator was my success as an educator was based on the success of others. I am a good teacher when my students do well. So if my students are scoring well in their exams, if they are turning out to be well-intentioned, decent, honorable human beings, they are going to the best colleges and universities that they aspire for, that shows that I'm a good teacher. So my success lies in the other. In Bihar, the success of a politician lies in um, the exploitation of someone else. तो आप अपनी कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी को आप जितना गरीब रखेंगे वो आपके पीछे उतना दौड़ेंगे.
So you're saying that the politicians collectively have kept Bihar and the local population poor over the years.
In my personal opinion. I come from a district called Rohtas. My village is called Tilothu. There's a town 15 kilometers away from us called Dihri on Son. The elder generation, the people who are in their 60s, would remember Dihri on Son because the Dalmias set up a integrated industrial complex called Dalmia Nagar in Dihri on Son, and this was set up between the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And at that point of time, I think there were upwards of 14 different products that were being made in that complex. This was in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s in the interiors of Bihar. And just as an example, not to point fingers at anywhere else, but in the 40s and 50s, what was happening in Gurgaon? It was predominantly agricultural. In the 40s and 50s, there was no sort of Hyderabad or Bangalore was not what they are today. So we started off almost 90 years ago with a bunch of industrialized complexes in the interiors of Bihar, which because of union politics shut down. And all these companies said that it is better that we shut these companies down and move out than run them unprofitably here. So yes, I definitely think कि politicians for their own selfish good have essentially एक माहौल बन गया है बिहार में कि आपके पास सामाजिक शक्ति होनी चाहिए, आर्थिक शक्ति बेकार चीज होती है.
Also, Bihar has been seen as a stimulus driven state. Do you think that this can be changed?
Yeah, I mean,
And
stimulus
in
driven.
in one generation.
I think we're being very kind. Stimulus driven means that there are central funds that go into the lowest levels which then facilitate economic growth. I think the only stimulus in Bihar is that all this money is going into graft. Um, I don't have any statistics for it, but and I can now say this with authority, and I'm saying it with a degree of heartbreak, that छोटे से छोटे काम करवाने के लिए, death certificate बनवाने के लिए, you have to give 60 rupees to 80 rupees as bribe. इंदिरा आवास होता है, this the for पक्का करण जो आपका central fund आता है, you get ₹1,20,000 to बोलचाल में उसको इंदिरा आवास कहते हैं. The technical name is प्रधानमंत्री ग्रामीण आवास योजना. वो 1,20,000 में it's a given कि 40,000 आपको घूस में देना होगा.
And how many years do you think would it take to actually for Bihar to become a self-sustained state? And do you think this can happen in one generation? Do you think it's possible?
I think that politics is based on hope. And anyone who wants to engender change has to essentially be hopeful. But you cannot be uh, blind to ground realities as well. I give you this example of education. We can make, so if a bridge breaks down, you can rebuild a bridge. A hospital has no medication, you can restock it with medication. रोड खराब हो जाता है, आप रोड को फिर से बना सकते हैं. But a generation that has been that has received subpar education, for the rest of their lives they will be behind those who have got better education than them. And I think the biggest disservice that the leaders of Bihar have done to the people has to hollow out the education system, which has translated in, I would say, a disenfranchisement and uh, people not having, not really realizing the kind of rights and authorities that they have in a democracy. So when you ask whether it is possible in a generation, I think it can. It's not a matter of time. I think it is a matter of intention. A critical mass has to be created. I give this example time and time again. आप यहाँ दिल्ली में मुखर्जी नगर चले जाइए, and every, you know, out of 100 there must be at least 60 people who are from Bihar who are preparing for these examinations. Large numbers of them are reaching the mains but might not be clearing it, and they have studied for 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, yes, in very difficult situations. Parents have sacrificed a lot for them to do this. Out of 100 people who are preparing for a for a government exam, I would say maybe 4 or 5 will get it. What happens to the 95? So these are kids who now are very well educated, have a tremendous work ethic, because preparing for the UPSC is not easy. Are living in Delhi, have not made it for a government job, so are now looking around for jobs in the Delhi metro, in a mall, etc., etc. What is stopping us from bringing these? So if there's a young person who has reached the mains of the UPSC, has got a hall ticket that says that you've been called for the mains, and there would be lakhs of these kids from Bihar who would have done that over the last 10 years. Just based on that hall ticket, can we not bring them back and make them school teachers in Bihar? Like, these are kids who are earning at best 40,000-50,000 rupees, working in places in Delhi, whether it's a metro or a mall, or selling insurance or whatever else. Out of the 40,000-50,000 rupees they are making, they're spending maybe 10,000-15,000 rupees on rent. They're spending another 10,000-12,000 rupees on monthly groceries, etc. They're sending some money home. तो आपके पास पॉकेट में कुछ बच ही नहीं रहा है. बिहार के सरकारी शिक्षक को 60,000 रुपया से 1,20,000 रुपया मिलता है. And I'm not even sure what kind of capacity they have. We can bring these people back to schools close to their home. And I'm not saying that it's an automatic, it's an automatic movement. But if you've studied for 10 years, you have certain
qualifications,
and this hall ticket that you've made it to a UPSC, then you're obviously a bit better qualified than most of the teachers in Bihar.
Very true.
And आप फिर उस गांव में या जहां भी उस क्षेत्र में आप एक माहौल भी बना सकेंगे. बच्चे देखेंगे आपको कि ये भैया है, ये दीदी हैं, इन्होंने इतना पढ़ाई किया है, स्वभाव ऐसा है. They can do their own coaching in those. So I think that change can happen in a generation. I think a good bridge can be built in a year, a good road can be built in a year, but I think attitudes will take longer. Again, I give you the example of so many people from Bihar doing so well outside of Bihar.
How do you think this would be done, though? How do you think can the government facilitate this particular change?
If they wanted to, they could. I think विश्वास की बात होती है. यही बच्चे हैं जो दिल्ली में, कोटा में, बम्बई में गाली भी खाते हैं, कष्ट भी होती है, कष्ट भी होता है, परिस्थिति मुश्किल होती हैं, तब भी मेहनत करते हैं. It is okay for us, and I won't say them, it is okay for us to face difficulty outside of Bihar and work hard, because there is this belief maybe that my working hard will result in good consequences for me.
Yes.
Whereas being back in Bihar, no matter how hard I work, I will not be able to have that kind of result. And that's where I think government comes in. Law and order has to be better. There has to be more development. Again, very interesting. Before the internet era, I think after Hindi cinema, the largest number of screens would show Bhojpuri movies. This is before you. Now I don't know what the data is, but the Bhojpuri cinema is a large, uh, is a large presence in the entertainment world. But Bhojpuri cinema is not based in Patna or in Bihar. I mean, now I think in UP, the new Yogi Adityanath's government is promoting setting up a film city in UP. But बिहार के actors बॉम्बे में रहते हैं, directors बॉम्बे में रहते हैं, technicians बॉम्बे में रहते हैं. It's absurd. Like you come, like how we at one point of time, how that gentleman who used to make Shah Rukh Khan movies, they used to go to Switzerland and shoot, and then come back. बिहार में वही हो रहा है. Like Bhojpuri cinema, the people are living in Bombay, they come to Bihar to shoot, but all the value addition is happening in Bombay, in Mumbai. The studios are in Mumbai, the technicians are in Mumbai, the actors, script writers, etc. So it's because the government is not able to inspire confidence amongst these people that अगर आप बिहार में रह के काम करेंगे तो आप सफल होंगे. And that is, to my mind, and I can say it with a great degree of conviction, that blame, that responsibility is the government's responsibility. And if they are able to, Nitish Kumar's government every year they do this function in Patna where they bring industrialists from all over the country and the world, trying to get them कि आप बिहार में आके निवेश करिए. हर साल I think they spend almost 20-25 crores every year to have that function. I don't think it has resulted in anyone coming from outside of Bihar to set up industries there. Because at the end of the day, if I'm putting in that investment, I have to be assured that my investment is protected. It has to be protected from encroachment. It has to be protected from antisocial elements. It has to have support of the local administration. I look at Chandrababu Naidu in Andhra and specifically Hyderabad in the late 90s. Chandrababu Naidu said that anyone from anywhere in the world, you come into Hyderabad, come in with a suitcase, there's a single window, you will get infrastructural support from the government, you will get financial incentivization. So things like, for example, sunrise taxation, that don't give tax till you make profit. Electricity at a subsidized rate, land at a subsidized, and that resulted in Hyderabad becoming in many ways one of the commercial capitals of the world. You talked about, look at, for example, the whole ITES sector, not just call centers, data digitization, all of that. It is a geographically agnostic system. It doesn't require to be in a port city. It doesn't require to be on a national highway. In the year 2024, there is tremendous network connectivity even in the interiors of Bihar. Electricity is much better, and now we have better captive power systems. What stops any of these big organizations that have set up offices in Gurgaon and Bombay and Hyderabad, and where a large number of people who are working there, from the janitors to the CEOs who are from Bihar? What stops them from setting things up in Bihar as well? It is this maybe this anxiety that our investment will not be secure.
So Mohit, could you please talk a little about your Padyatra and what prompted you to join the Jan Swaraj when you were part of it?
So as I said before, I had lived away from Bihar for almost 40 years. I moved out of Bihar when I was 6. I returned when I was 40. I used to have this very interesting thing कि हम दिल्ली में किसी से मिलते थे, बात करते थे. They would have a 10-minute conversation with me, and then I would say that I'm from Bihar, and they would show surprise. They say कि you don't sound like you're from Bihar.
There are stereotypes that go.
And then I would be in Bihar, and if they didn't know me, and I'd have a 10-minute conversation with them, and then I would say कि हम तो यहाँ से ही बनी. Sorry, you don't sound Bihari at all. So I was in this really strange position where in Bhojpuri we say na henne ke na hunne ke. So I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, right outside Boston. Had decided to come back and try and do politics in India, and especially in Bihar. Had, I think, a reasonable amount of education in terms of books and learning and data, but didn't have the experiential experience, didn't have the lived experiences. I met Prashant Kishore in Delhi. I liked his idea. I met him in Delhi in 2021. Liked that idea of what he was trying to do, where essentially the idea was that Bihar needs to rise above caste, it needs to rise above religion, and focus on education and health and employment. I thought that was great thinking. And he was doing this Padyatra through, we walked through, I walked through 14 districts in the north of Bihar. So I started walking on the 2nd of October of 2022. Lived in a tent, slept on a khatia, took one, सुबह को खेत जाते थे for morning ablutions. Walked about 18 to 20. I walked about 8,500 kilometers through winter, summer, rain. Um, it was, I think, one of the most life transforming, or at least perspective transforming experiences of my life.
What was the purpose for the Padyatra, and what have been your key learnings from this? Because this would be a transformative experience,
Yeah.
as you mentioned.
So the purpose of the Padyatra was to establish the Jan Suraj movement as a political entity, as a new political entity in Bihar. I think it was done very interestingly and very honestly, and I can say that with confidence, having walked in it for a year. We walked through the smallest and smallest of villages. It was completely on foot. I remember that I think the first time I sat in a car must have been after 4 months of walking continuously. And that also, I had to get some medical treatment done. So we walked through places that most politicians don't go to. Most of the rallies, and I'm not passing any value judgment here. I'm just making an
But it's a true
observation.
fact. That's
Yeah,
true.
that most of these rallies are on state highways. They are in district headquarters at best. The small villages
Never touched upon.
are forgotten. We would take almost a month to walk in one district, and we touched every block in the district and almost 80% of panchayats in every block. So this was, and we had, when we started, um, we would do sabhas of 50 to 60 people under a tree. There was no, there were no people being bussed in. There was no financial incentivization. There was no free ka khana for people to come and listen to what
Yeah.
we were saying.
What is normally the norm
Yes.
to collect a crowd?
And interestingly, I remember after almost a month of this, our last sabha would happen. So we would walk for about 3 kilometers, stop at a particular place, have a conversation, then walk another 2 kilometers, etc. So that's how we did almost about 6 to 8 large sabhas, maybe 15 to 20 small sabhas a day, and also walked. And basically, the sabhas were for us to speak, and while we were walking, it was for us to listen and see. Um, I remember the last sabha would happen sometimes at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night in the interiors. So this
That's
is
very
एकदम
late
हाँ.
for
और हाँ, जैसे आपने
village
बोला
time,
गांव
yeah.
में 7 बजे के बाद लोग घर के अंदर ही आ जाते रहते हैं. At I was so surprised and pleasantly surprised that so many of our meetings, once we built that traction, there would be at least between 350 to 500, sometimes 700, sometimes 1,000 people attending these sabhas at 10:30 at night.
That's a massive success.
And a large number of them were women who also felt comfortable to walk out and listen. So
Do you think that was because women normally remain inside the house because they have to do the housework
absolutely.
and care for the children, and it's only then that they can actually step out and be a part of anything?
Absolutely. I think, and more so in Bihar, one of the things you said, what was one of your learnings? गांव सब खाली हैं और पुरुष नहीं है गांव में.
जी.
Everyone's gone out to work. So now the woman who's anyway working very hard
Is overworked.
is overworked because they are also tending to the fields. They're also tending to aged in-laws, raising kids as well, and doing ghar ka kaam. So for them to come out and listen, I thought was very, very interesting. What was my learning? My learning was that even though I was from Bihar, I knew very little about Bihar. I think there were many places where the state had let its people down. I remember seeing, um, there were places where people were still trading. तो instead of using cash, आप 350 ग्राम का आप you're trading 350 400 grams of polished rice to get refined oil. So in today's day and age,
Barter.
barter system is still going on. Health facilities non-existent in the interiors. High degrees of unemployment. Um, a lot of my friends and relatives would say, हाँ वो सब तो ठीक है लेकिन रोड तो बहुत अच्छा कर दिया है. सब लोग बोलते हैं कि बिहार में रोड बहुत अच्छा हो गया है. That is only the national highways and some state highways. The interiors, there
And
are
untouched.
almost,
I think that's the same story for majority of India. The villages are
yeah,
untouched, the infrastructure wise.
8,500 panchayats in Bihar. Almost between 25, 30, 40 villages in each panchayat. वहाँ पे तो कोई roads है नहीं. There was this whole, we were very proud of this thing called the Lohiya Abhiyan in terms of stopping open defecation. Does not exist. I don't know where that money has gone. Large amounts of criminal administrative negligence.
Criminal administrative negligence.
I mean, I would call it criminal because it was just for, as I give you this example, किसी का मृत्यु प्रमाण पत्र बनाने में आपको 60 रुपया का घूस देना पड़ता है. I don't know how that person who's accepting that घूस is able to sleep at night. And from 60 rupees to 40,000 rupees for your Indra Awas Yojana, everything is corruption ridden. The bureaucrat has no fear of the politician, or of the public representative, and the people who are, these are the most vulnerable people in the world in terms of their education, in terms of their health. They require government services more than any of us.
So you're saying the rot is actually very deep.
Very, very deep.
And more
Right at
systems
the
have to
bottom.
be employed to actually deal with this. And it's a collective effort that would be required.
Absolutely.
From people, politicians' attitudes, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
that even if systems are put into place, to actually implement them is going to be the more important and challenging bit.
I think the Indian administration is by far one of the most complex systems in the world. But it's not just the mechanism or the structure of the system, it's the people who run it. Odisha, for example, started off as a state that was perhaps as backward at one point of time, but the Odisha model allowed for district administrations and administration at the block level and the panchayat level to very efficiently transfer funds as well as government services to the people at the panchayat level.
Okay.
So it's not that it can't be done. There are examples, and in a neighboring state,
The success stories.
there are success stories.
So it can be implemented.
It can be done. It can't be based on a single. I think that's where we go wrong. We have this idea of in Latin there was this term called Dio Machina. Like if you look at any of the old texts, they all start with things are happy in the beginning. फिर सब चीज़ खराब हो जाता है. Wife is kidnapped, son dies, there's drought, there is pillaging, and then this one person comes, like the hand of God, and that person comes and cleans up everything.
The savior.
The savior, right? So it's like Ram Rajya ho gaya, yeah, this particular king or this particular leader.
The Messiah.
It's not possible. It's not possible for one person to do it. There has to be larger involvement, and I think that was one of the reasons why I, got into politics. A lot of people said that I shouldn't, but then, if I have certain capabilities, experiences, then it is my responsibility to use those capabilities and experiences. So yes, it is a daunting task, but it can be done. It'll take time, but it'll require more involvement of communities.
Mohit, I'd like to ask you, so there have been the Lalu years and there have been the Nitish years.
Yes.
What is your particular vision for the new Bihar?
I think it's basic. whenever I'm confused in anything, I go back to the fundamentals. It's a simple, we have to have good education. And by good education, I don't mean just your formal exam preparation and exam writing systems, but value based education, ITIs as well as formal education. So, A, we have to fix the education system. B, at the PHCs, the primary health centers, they have to be improved. And as a combination of these two, I keep saying this, especially in places like Bihar and UP, सबसे ज़्यादा सरकार से ही मांग की जाती है कि सरकारी नौकरी.
जी.
सरकारी नौकरी, our rate of employment is so high, our population is so high, government jobs will never be able to cater. I talked to you in the beginning of the program about hypercapitalization. The capitalism also will ensure that you you optimize and increase profits. You will do that by reducing the labor that you have. So private sector is not going to really be able to employ so many people, neither is the government sector. It will have to be incubation of entrepreneurs. It will have to be generating, setting up a system that allows for small businesses to thrive.
So that means more money actually being pumped in again, more
Yes.
stimulus. But do you think that would be a good idea, considering that there is actually a rot in the system? You spoke about the corrupt
Corruption.
bureaucracy and the corrupt systems, that bribes are rampant. Do you think it would be successful in such a setting?
Yeah, I think.
Wouldn't it be counterintuitive?
We shouldn't let perfection get in the way of good. There will be graft. There will be corruption. I'm not condoning it. But there has to be a balance between idealism and practicality. Hone do. Let there be some graft. But with that graft, if there are 10,000 more people who are able to set up some small and medium enterprises, they are going to generate employment for 40, 50 more people. So I don't think there can ever be I hope there is, but practically speaking, I don't think there can be a corruption-less system, zero corruption system.
Of course.
Difficult to achieve. So that doesn't mean that we stop doing work till corruption is wiped out. So you ask me as a practical, someone who's sort of doing this on the ground, ऐसे ठीक है होने दो थोड़ा बहुत. 10 लाख रुपए अगर आ रहे हैं, उसमें से अगर 3 लाख भी चोरी हो रहा है, 7 लाख तो आ रहे हैं.
But don't you think with the existing systems, it is possible that मान लीजिए 10 lakh में से 9 lakh are actually going down the drain and there's 1 lakh?
Correct.
Because since it has been running in that way.
Yes. But I feel there is more, technology helps. We have direct transfer systems now. The Aadhaar card system plus the Manrega delivery system. I mean, you look at the Manrega delivery system in 2014 and before 2014. A lot of people said कि अरे ये तो dummy accounts होंगे, पैसा वहाँ पहुँचेगा नहीं, और अभी भी हैं. But there has been more good than bad, in my opinion.
Okay.
And I think that this is a pinch sorry to use the word cost of doing business, but if I was in I think that it's a price I would be willing to pay. Okay. If it engenders even a little more development. I keep saying that we cannot let perfect come in the way of good. धीरे-धीरे ठीक करेंगे.
So I gather that you're of the belief that basically driving some more economic activity by way of entrepreneurship and multiple other ways, whether it be government or private players or corporates, once everyone steps in, even in a smaller capacity, the attitudinal shift would be easier to achieve.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, these are the same people who are doing this kind of work outside of Bihar, living away from their families, coming back home twice a year. They are living in difficult circumstances out of Bihar, whereas their parents are back home. They've fallen sick. There's no one there to take care of them. Yes. They're coming back home maybe twice a year to celebrate festivals. I mean, I think that's something that who wouldn't... I've lived away from home for 35 years of my life. Who wouldn't want to come back home and stay?
Of course.
Right. So I think it's worth the risk.
So Mohit, Bihar is often described as one of the most backward states in the country. Whether you look at education, medical facilities, jobs, or in many other key areas. So how do you plan to address these challenges?
I think, as I said, basic thing. One small example I took was sort of, bringing educated young people back into Bihar as government school teachers. Second, as I said, that it cannot just be government jobs and private sector employment. There has to be a small and medium business incubation center in Bihar for Bihar.
Exploring
Yeah.
entrepreneurial
So,
activity.
not just being able to provide loans to set up businesses, but also the kind of varied skill sets that exist amongst people of Bihar, but not necessarily working in Bihar. Like,
Bihar is
yeah.
considered as the king of Jugaad
Yeah, absolutely.
in an unorganized
Okay, हाँ,
sector.
yes, एकदम. एंड ये सब जुगाड़ बिहार के बाहर हम लोग इस्तेमाल करते हैं, कभी बिहार में ही इस्तेमाल करें.
जी.
Every family in Bihar has someone or the other who has moved out in work, whether it's people who are well off, their kids have gone out to study or gone out to work. People who are not so well off, their kids have gone out to do mazduri. Uh, and all of them have learned certain things. So I have people in my village who've been working in Ambala in hosiery units for 30 years. They know that entire system, but they don't have the finances
To set up their own
or the
enterprise.
mahal to set up something in their own place. So that has to change. Health has to be better, and we do these three things. Bihar has the capacity to fix itself. It doesn't require some external agency or an individual. We improve health, we improve education, and we find opportunities that are that generate employment. Easier said than done, of course, but these three basic things, I think, agrotechnology for cash crops in the agricultural sector, direct linkages. मखाना की बहुत बात होती है. नॉर्थ बिहार में मखाना बहुत उगाया जाता है, मिथिला प्रदेश में. It's considered a superfruit. I believe your big, Amazon chains, that big, I forget that grocery chain that Amazon owns in
Big
America.
Okay.
Whatever the name is, they are packing and selling makhana at $27-30 a packet.
Coming to that, do you think that there's a lot of talk of just of shifting of agricultural crops from cereal based to cash crop?
To cash crops. I think there has to be a combination. And for small landholders, cash crops is more profitable when you have cash infusion with cash crops, which is directly linked to the market. Then you have more disposable income. More disposable income allows you to invest in more land. When you increase your land holding that way, and there is some state support for subsidization of land holdings as well, then you do cash crop as well as food crop. Okay. So I think it's a cycle that can be improved.
And Mohit, do you think that the people of Bihar are ready for this, for the rapid urbanization and for all these changes?
I think urbanization. So urbanization has changed over time, right? So 30 years ago, urbanization meant that either people from rural areas moved to urban areas and increased the population of the urban area, or that the urban area grew in size, and then peri-urban areas became urban areas. No one is talking about digital urbanization today. So there's a 16-year-old young person sitting in a small village in Bihar consuming exactly the same media content as their contemporary in Bombay or in Mumbai or Delhi or anywhere else. So the orientation is anyway urbanized. The consumption is urbanized. I think what is missing is the infrastructure and the systems of urbanization.
So you believe that the people they've already caught up to the new developments worldwide and India-wise, courtesy globalization.
Yes.
But the rest of the infrastructure and facilities have not.
Have not.
The support hasn't come the way it should have for the people of Bihar.
Aspirations have changed significantly. And yes, I'm not so sure that urbanization is such a great thing, but with, I think, the facilities that urbanization brings, if, for example, there is less distinction, caste-based distinction in urban areas, then it's welcome. I think if you have greater health facilities, better health facilities because of urbanization, I think it's welcome. I think if you have better job opportunities because of urbanization, then it's welcome. But if there is, along with that, along with those plus elements of urbanization, you also have, more pollution, more ecological degradation. Bhutan comes to mind. I think Bhutan has done a very good job of balancing modernization along with being ecologically responsible. So I think examples exist. The opportunities are limitless. There has to be a balance that I keep reminding myself, and I think I'll be boring your viewers by keep saying it, but there has to be a balance between idealism and practicality. One doesn't have to tend towards, one doesn't have to swing towards one or the other.
Extreme. Okay.
So yeah, and I just to add on to that, 66% of our population is young. It's less than 50 years of age. And they are consuming, as I said, they are consuming content on their phones and through cheap internet and data. They are consuming content that the rest of the world is consuming. Aspirations are changing.
How do you plan to channel the energy of a young youth population, working youth population, into a productive way and in the service sector?
Again, I give you the example of certain ITES, information technology enabled services that are geographically agnostic. I think Bihar could be a good home.
Geographically agnostic, you would mean?
That, so for example, there are certain industries that can only be established in certain geographies. So if I'm making a cement plant, it has to be connected to a railway line or to a national highway. If I'm mining, then I have to mine in an area where those raw materials exist. Yeah. But there are certain, globalization
so not
has
location
shown,
specific.
Yeah, it's not location specific. Okay. In fact, it might make more business sense for these businesses to then have these setups in tier 3,
where
tier 4
the labor is cheaper,
where labor, the cost of living and cost of doing business is lesser. And that has a spillover effect, because that money, that disposable income that comes into a tier 4 city allows for the creation of there's more consumption, there is more money circulating in the local economy that grows that economy as well.
Okay.
So one is that.
Mohit, I'd like to ask you 10 actionable steps that you can take to actually revive the Bihar growth story.
Wow. 10 actionable steps.
Yes.
I think the knowledge economy. Being an educator, that is what I'm focused on most. I think quota is a mixed blessing. As an educator, I don't think the quota story where you've got these sort of preparation centers, it's not the ideal setup, because you're setting kids up to crack exams but not necessarily
at life
be successful.
Yeah.
But again, in the practical sense, I think, like my constituency, Sasaram, 3-4 years ago, there was a photograph that had gone viral globally. I was in the US and someone had shown me that picture of these young people sitting in the Sasaram railway station and studying late at night. I think Sasaram could become a bigger, better educational hub than Kota is today.
Okay.
All these people who are teaching in Mukherjee Nagar and studying in Mukherjee Nagar or any of these places in Delhi or Kota, large number of them are from Bihar. We can bring them back. Again, I give you that example of people who have sat for government exams and not made it. They can be brought back and be made school teachers for government schools. I think we talked about the Jugadi idea of Biharis. I think that's a great skill that we have. Jugaad is just another word for, Jugaad is just another word for entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So that system has to come into place as well. Tourism is, again, just in popular perception, Bihar is seen as is a place that is seen as backward, regressive.
Yes.
Law and order is an issue. But, you have some of, Nalanda is in Bihar, Sher Shah Suri's mausoleum is in Bihar.
It has a rich history,
it has
going back thousands of years.
Thousands and thousands of years. And both religious, educational, Guru Gobind Singh Ji was from Bihar.
Buddha was from Bihar.
Buddha attained enlightenment in Bihar. Um, the Mahavir Bhagwan is from from Bihar. So you've got all these elements are there. I think
Culturally
there can
rich.
be a big push in terms of tourism as well. I think for the arts, the creative arts, music, Bhojpuri rap, visual artists, graphic designers, fusion music. I mean, the future is it's rife. The Bhojpuri film industry could be
Another
brought
avenue.
back and centered in Bihar.
Okay.
So I don't know whether that's 10, but there are 5 or 6 at least. And there can be 100 things, but for me, these 5, 6 things are, and of course, um, um, uh, modern agricultural, cash crops, agro-tech, agro-based businesses that would be very successful in Bihar.
Mohit, what is the larger or the big picture that you see for Bihar in, say, the next 10 years? And how do you aim at achieving it?
I would say my biggest aspiration would be to stop out migration.
Okay.
Uh, if we are able to do something in which there is space and opportunity and hope for the young people of Bihar to stay at home and be successful out of choice.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everyone has to, sometimes moving out, I'm someone that moving out will give you a better education as well, a better experience as well. But out of choice, you should have a choice. So for me, one of the biggest indicators of success would be that we stop this out migration.
The brain drain from
The brain
Bihar
drain,
specifically.
yes. Second, I think that we are anyway seen as an education powerhouse, but there is, I don't think we've capitalized on it enough.
Okay.
So Bihar needs to be, and all the raw material is there for it. It needs to lead the way actually for value-based, fundamentally sound and rigorous education. Our population is increasing and our agricultural lands are reducing. I think therein again, Bihar can once again be like my district, Rohtas, per acre grows more rice, more paddy than anywhere else in the country.
Okay.
But as I said, that this is not profitable agriculture. With the kind of demographic trends that we have, it is important for us to safeguard our agricultural land and make agriculture profitable. I think Bihar has tremendous potential to be a leader in that. And I think more than anything else, just the simplicity and the wisdom and the intelligence of Bihar. I think it's a very potent combination. So, yeah.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
All right. What lastly, I'd like to actually ask you, what was the reason that you chose to part ways with the Jan Swaraj? Especially since you were a part of the founding initial idea.
I mean, see, I would say the whole point of having multiple political parties, we keep talking about how, especially in a place like Bihar, we vote on caste lines and religious lines.
Yes.
Sure, we do. But I think we also vote on party lines. And that is as dogmatic.
Absolutely.
बिहार में अगर कट्टरवाद जात के ऊपर है या धर्म के ऊपर है, उससे ज़्यादा पार्टी के ऊपर है. In own families, people are fighting. आज अब in any family over the dining table, there are these huge fights over which one party is better or one party is worse. And I think that it's funny because you friendships, marriages are breaking up because of political sort of differences. But
Don't
the
you
guy,
think it's increased in the past?
I think so. Obviously, it clearly has. But the person who you're fighting for does not even know your name. So to answer your question, I think if the Constitution has allowed for elections every 5 years and has allowed for multiple parties to come in and sort of engage in that political process, it means that it is not necessary that one party or one leader or one organization has all the answers all the time. And if I am a citizen, I mean, I'm a citizen of this country, and I have apna thoda vivek hai, I have certain cognitive abilities, then it's my right to sometimes a certain organization I find resonance with. Sometimes you see that the direction is going somewhere else, and I want to go in another direction. I was with them till it was in Abhiyan. When they became a party, I figured that, again, no value judgment there.
But
One
your
has to
ideas did
figure
not
out.
align with the
Yeah, I think I was in
party.
another. I might have to go in another. I think my direction is a little different.
A detour.
Yeah, but tremendous learning. I think Prashant Kishore is a very intelligent person. He has worked very hard, and I had a 2 years was great learning for me. So that's always a plus. I think we have to be lifelong learners, and those experiences were tremendously valuable for me. In my own small way, I did a little, what contribution I could, and now I have to move
Move
in
to
one
other
direction. Yeah,
avenues.
yeah.
Well, I certainly valued this conversation. Thank you so much for being with us, Mohit. I hope best for you, and may your journey continue into politics.
Thank you very much. It was such a pleasure, and I hope I didn't bore you or your viewers too
We
much.
loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
If you like this episode, then please like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.